The fluorescent lights of the FBI's Financial Crimes Division cast harsh shadows across Detective Sarah Chen's desk as she stared at the mountain of bank records spread before her. What had started as a routine investigation into Marcus Blackwood's business partner, a mid-level money launderer named Tony Rickey, had taken an unexpected turn when 3 separate witnesses mentioned the same thing: a hidden vault containing what they called insurance policies. Chen had been tracking financial crimes for 12 years, but something about this case felt different. The shell companies didn't just hide money, they formed intricate webs that seemed designed to obscure something far more sinister than tax evasion. Blackwood Entertainment Group, founded by the enigmatic Marcus Blackwood, sat at the center of it all like a spider in its web. Marcus Blackwood wasn't just another entertainment mogul. For 2 decades, he had built an empire that stretched from record labels to fashion lines, from nightclub chains to streaming platforms. His annual parties were legendary invitation-only events where A-list celebrities, politicians, and business titans mingled in his sprawling Beverly Hills mansion. To receive an invitation was to be welcomed into the inner circle of power and influence. But Chen had heard the whispers. Former employees spoke in hushed tones about Blackwood's special filing system and his habit of keeping detailed records of every business meeting and social gathering. Artists who had tried to leave his label described feeling trapped, though none could articulate exactly why. When pressed, they would simply say that Blackwood knew things that made walking away impossible. The breakthrough came when Ricky's accountant, facing federal charges, offered to cooperate. Through tears, she described being asked to make coded payments to individuals she'd never met. Payments that corresponded to dates when various celebrities and executives had suddenly changed their positions on deals involving Blackwood's companies. The pattern was unmistakable. Someone would publicly oppose one of Blackwood's ventures, receive a mysterious payment, and then reverse their stance within days. It wasn't just business, the accountant had whispered during her debriefing. He collected secrets like other people collect art. And he wasn't shy about using them. The search warrant took weeks to obtain. Federal prosecutors needed concrete evidence, not just witness testimony about rumors and whispers. But when cell phone records revealed that Blackwood had been in contact with all 3 witnesses during the same week they mentioned the vault, a judge finally signed off on the operation. At 5:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, Chen stood outside Blackwood's mansion alongside 30 federal agents. The house was a monument to excess. 12 bedrooms, a home theater, an indoor basketball court, and a wine cellar that could stock a restaurant. But Chen wasn't interested in the luxury. She was focused on finding whatever Blackwood had been hiding behind his facade of success. The initial search turned up the expected evidence: computers, phones, financial records, and several safes containing cash and jewelry. But the specialized team Chen had requested, experts in locating hidden compartments and secret rooms, were methodically working through the house with thermal imaging equipment and architectural blueprints. It was Agent Rodriguez who made the discovery. In the master bedroom's walk-in closet, the thermal scanner detected an inconsistency behind what appeared to be a solid wall. The blueprints showed no space there, but the heat signature suggested otherwise. After 2 hours of careful examination, they discovered that a section of built-in shelving could be moved by applying pressure to specific points in a particular sequence. Behind the false wall sat a vault that would change everything they thought they knew about Marcus Blackwood and reveal the true scope of his empire built on secrets and silence. 6 months later, the federal courthouse buzzed with an energy that veteran court reporters had rarely experienced. The media had dubbed it the entertainment trial of the century, but those inside the courtroom knew they were witnessing something far more significant than celebrity scandal. This was about power, control, and the systematic destruction of lives for profit. Agent Chen took the witness stand with the calm professionalism of someone who had testified in dozens of cases. But even she felt the weight of the moment as she began describing what the team had found behind that hidden wall. The vault wasn't just a safe. It was a sophisticated storage system that had clearly been professionally installed and regularly maintained. The defendant refused to provide the combination, Chen testified, her voice carrying clearly through the packed courtroom. "We used specialized equipment to open the vault without damaging its contents. What we found inside represented 23 years of systematic collection and cataloging of compromising material. The first items removed from the vault were handwritten ledgers, 3 leather-bound books containing detailed records of payments, dates, and coded references to individuals. The prosecution's financial expert had spent months deciphering the code, matching entries to bank withdrawals and deposits that painted a clear picture of systematic blackmail operations. But it was the digital evidence that truly shocked the courtroom. Over 40 USB drives, each labeled with initials and dates spanning from 2001 to 2024, contained video and audio recordings of hundreds of individuals in compromising situations. Many appeared to have been recorded without the subject's knowledge during parties and business meetings at Blackwood's various properties. The prosecution played excerpts from just 3 recordings, enough to establish the pattern without violating the privacy of victims who had already suffered enough. In each case, the recording showed the individual in a situation that could destroy their career or personal relationships if made public. Cross-referenced with the ledgers, investigators could trace how these recordings had been weaponized. The systematic nature of the operation became clear through a series of documents the prosecution called the Blackwood Protocols. These were detailed instructions for staff on how to position recording equipment, how to encourage guests to compromise themselves, and how to store and catalog the resulting material. One document, titled Leverage Assessment Guidelines, provided a scoring system for evaluating how effectively each piece of compromising material could be used to control its subject. Perhaps most chilling were the communications logs, printed emails and text messages where Blackwood explicitly referenced the recordings in conversations with the people he had secretly filmed. The messages were masterclasses in psychological manipulation, never quite crossing the line into explicit threats while making their meaning unmistakably clear. One exchange with a prominent film director read, "I've been thinking about our conversation at last year's charity gala. Before you make your final decision about the distribution deal, you might want to revisit some of the fun moments from that evening. I've prepared a small compilation that might help refresh your memory of what a good time we all had." The director, who had initially refused to work with Blackwood's distribution company, signed an exclusive contract worth $30 million less than his asking price just 18 hours after receiving that message. When contacted by investigators, he broke down completely, describing years of feeling trapped in increasingly unfavorable deals because he knew Blackwood possessed material that would destroy his marriage and career. The courtroom fell silent as the full scope of the operation became clear. This wasn't opportunistic collection of compromising material, it was an industrial-scale blackmail operation disguised as entertainment industry networking. Every party, every business meeting, every social gathering had been carefully orchestrated to create opportunities for gathering leverage over anyone who might someday pose a threat to Blackwood's empire. As the trial progressed into its 3rd week, the true architecture of Blackwood's operation emerged through testimony from former employees and business associates. What had initially appeared to be a wealthy executive's paranoid collection of blackmail material revealed itself as something far more sophisticated, a systematic network designed to infiltrate and control multiple industries simultaneously. Dr. Elizabeth Harper, a forensic psychologist who had analyzed the seized documents, testified about the evolution of Blackwood's methods. "The early entries show opportunistic collection," she explained to the jury. "Someone says something embarrassing at a party, and it gets recorded. But by 2010, we see evidence of systematic creation of compromising situations. Parties weren't just social events, they were operations designed to generate material for future use." The prosecution presented case studies of 3 individuals who had attempted to expose Blackwood's activities or break free from his control. In each case, the person experienced a precisely orchestrated series of disasters: sudden IRS audits, unflattering media stories based on leaked personal information, key business relationships mysteriously souring, and personal relationships disrupted by anonymous tips and manufactured scandals. One victim, music producer Janet Williams, testified about her experience trying to leave Blackwood's organization in 2019. Within weeks of announcing her intention to start her own label, she faced a federal investigation into her taxes. Her husband received anonymous messages about an alleged affair. Her biggest client was approached with compromising audio of Williams making disparaging comments, and her business partners began withdrawing from joint ventures after receiving mysterious warnings about her reliability. "I knew it was him," Williams testified through tears. "Every single thing that went wrong could be traced back to information that only Marcus had access to. But proving it was impossible. He was too smart, too careful. The system was designed to destroy people while leaving no fingerprints." Perhaps most chilling was the discovery of what investigators called the nuclear option, files containing the most sensitive material reserved for the most extreme situations. These included evidence of criminal activity, family secrets that could destroy relationships, and information that could literally end lives if revealed. The psychological impact of knowing such material existed was often enough to ensure complete compliance without it ever needing to be used. The courtroom held its collective breath as Agent Chen described the final phase of the vault's contents. Within the main safe, investigators had discovered a smaller, more sophisticated vault. One that required biometric identification and a separate combination. This inner sanctuary contained what Blackwood had clearly considered his most precious and dangerous assets. The smaller vault's contents represented over 2 decades of the most sensitive material imaginable. Among the drives and documents were detailed records of criminal activities that went far beyond blackmail and extortion. Evidence suggested involvement in witness intimidation, document destruction, and coordination with organized crime figures to eliminate threats that couldn't be controlled through conventional leverage. Most shocking was a collection of materials related to the 2003 warehouse fire that had killed investigative journalist Amanda Cross, who had been working on an exposé of entertainment industry corruption. The fire had been ruled accidental, but Blackwood's vault contained communications suggesting advanced knowledge of the incident and coordination with individuals who had access to the building's security systems. The prosecution's star witness was Dr. Michael Chen, a digital forensics expert who had spent months analyzing the vault's contents. His testimony revealed that Blackwood had maintained detailed psychological profiles of every individual in his network, not just their vulnerabilities and compromising material, but comprehensive analyses of their mental states, breaking points, and most effective manipulation tactics. This wasn't just blackmail, Dr. Chen testified. This was psychological warfare conducted with scientific precision. Mr. Blackwood had essentially created a psychological database that allowed him to predict and control human behavior on an industrial scale. The moment that broke the case and the defendant came when the prosecution played a recording from 2018. In it, Blackwood could be heard discussing the planned suicide of a former business partner who had threatened to expose him. The conversation included specific details about how to manipulate the individual's depression, isolate him from support systems, and create the circumstances that would lead to what would appear to be a voluntary death. As his own voice filled the courtroom, casual, calculating, describing the methodical destruction of a human life as if discussing dinner plans, Marcus Blackwood's carefully maintained composure finally cracked. The transformation was dramatic and complete. The confident executive who had entered the courtroom each day for 3 weeks suddenly appeared to age 10 years in 10 seconds. His breathing became labored and shallow. Color drained from his face. His hands, which had remained steady throughout weeks of damning testimony, began to shake uncontrollably. When the recording reached the part where he laughed about attending the victim's funeral to maintain appearances, Blackwood doubled over in his chair. The paramedics were called when he collapsed completely, but not before the courtroom heard him whisper something that the court reporter barely caught. "I never meant for it to go this far." Agent Chen, who had seen hardened criminals break under pressure before, later described the moment as unlike anything in her career. "In 22 years of law enforcement, I've never seen someone's entire identity just disintegrate like that. It was like watching someone realize that the person they thought they were had never actually existed." The plea negotiations that followed were swift. Faced with evidence that could support charges ranging from racketeering to conspiracy to commit murder, Blackwood's legal team had few options. The final agreement included guilty pleas to 18 federal charges and a sentence of 25 years to life in federal prison. But perhaps the most significant outcome was the vindication of Amanda Cross's work and the reopening of several cases involving suspicious deaths and disappearances of individuals who had opposed Blackwood's interests. The evidence from the vault provided new leads in cases that had been cold for years, finally offering hope for justice to families who had been waiting decades for answers. The ripple effects extended throughout the entertainment industry and beyond. Congressional hearings were launched to investigate how such an operation could exist for over 2 decades without detection. New whistleblower protection laws were enacted. Industry organizations established independent oversight bodies to prevent similar abuses of power. In her final testimony, Agent Chen reflected on the case's broader implications. Marcus Blackwood thought he was building an empire, but what he actually created was a prison not just for his victims, but ultimately for himself. The very system he designed to control others became the evidence that destroyed him. Sometimes justice doesn't come from the outside. Sometimes it comes from the weight of our own actions finally becoming too heavy to bear. The vault that was meant to protect secrets had become the key that unlocked the truth, a reminder that in the end, no hiding place is secure enough to contain the consequences of our choices.